Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to our lessons about culture studies. And let's continue a second lecture. We're talking about fashion as confrontation. Repurposed everyday items, safety pins, pen liners, razor blades, deliberately torn and distressed clothing, provocative imagery, swastikas used for shock value, bondage gear, and which were brought in to public space, hairstyle to maximize visual impact, mohawks, and vibrant colors. So the fashion as confrontation, repurposed items, safety pins, pen liners, razor blades, torn clothing, provocative imagery, swastikas as for shock, bondage fetch wear, hair, mohawks, vibrant colors. So the slide describes punk fashion as deliberate provocation using everyday objects. Symbolically, the purpose is to illustrate bro, bright college repurposing as resistance with visuals likely reinforcing the shocking aesthetic. Musical revolution. Punk music stripped rock back to its raw essentials, short, fast songs with minimal instrumentation and production. Lyrics often address the political issues directly, with themes of alienation, class struggle, and anti-oath or Tronism. Key tracks like the Sex Pistols, God Save the Queen, and the Clash, White Riot functioned as explicit political statements challenging nationalism and system acrism representatively. So it was about musical revolution, short, fast songs with minimal instrumentation. Lyrics address the political, just like alienation, class struggle, anti-authoritism. Examples just like Sex Pistols, God Save the Queen, The Clashes, and the White Riot. So the slide covers punk's music simplicity and the political lyrics, with examples criticizing nationalism and racism. The purpose is to show music as direct activism, stripping away excess to focus on raw message. So Goth's darkness, dissent, and dramatic aesthetics. Gothic subculture emerged in the early 1980s as post-punk revolved in darker, more introspective directions, while punk suppressed rage through aggression and confrontation. Goth channeled this affection through melancholy, romanticism, and abstination with the macabre early goth gathering places included London's Batcave Club and Leeds Faun, where the aesthetic first coalesced around the bands like Bahu's, Sexusis, and the Banshees, and Sisters of Mercury. So this slide introduces Goth as the post-punk evolution, focusing on introspection over aggression. It lets us ski Venus, and man's purpose is to contrast with punk, showing Gothe's emotional depth and artistic influences. Victorian revivalism drew from mourning attire, Gothic literature, horror films, religious iconography. So the style was elaborate and labor intensive, requiring significant investment in specialized clothing and accessories, unlike Bank's deliberate cheapness. Um, Goes appealing to artistically in client youth who felt alienated by mainstream culture but were uncomfortable with Punk's sometimes intellectual stance. The subculture created space for exploring taboo subjects like death, sexuality, and mental illness through artistic expression rather than direct political action. But unlike Banker's deliberate cheapness, Gotham praised the quality materials and craftism on and cheap velvet lace, leather, and ornate jewelry. This emphasis on asceticism represented a form of resistance to 1980s consumerism by valuing the timeless over the trendy. So this slide details Goth fashion's historical inspirations, sizing craftsmanship. The purpose is to highlight Goth's romanticism, timeless aesthetic as resistance to 1980s consumerism. So intellectual foundation. Goethe was unusually literary for youth subculture, drawing inspiration from Gothic novels, romantic poetry, existentialist philosophy, and realistic art. This intellectual dimension made Goethe appealing to artistically inclined youth who felt alienated by mainstream culture, but were uncomfortable with Punk's sometimes anti-intellectual stance. The subculture created space for exploring taboo subjects like death, sexuality, and the mental illness through artistic expression rather than direct political action. So the slide emphasizes Goethe's literary and philosophical routes, making it unusually literary. The purpose is to portray Goethe as intellectually sophisticated, providing space for emotional expression. Remarkable longevity, unlike many subcultures that quickly fade or become commercialized beyond recognition, Goethe has demonstrated remarkable staying power. The subculture has evolved through several distinct phases: traditional Goth, industrial, cyber Goth, romantic Goth, while maintaining core aesthetic principles. This longevity can stay to several factors: the timeless nature of its influences, its appeal across multiple generations, and its creation of sustainable infrastructure, specialized clubs, festivals, and businesses. So we can summarize this because the slide discusses Goethe's enduring nature, listing evolutions. The purpose is to explain why Goethe persists, attributing it to adaptability and the community structures, contrasting with short-lived trends. So perhaps most significantly, Goethe's exploration of darkness and melancholy offered an emotional vocabulary absent in mainstream culture's emphasis on positivity and success, by creating a space for the expression of difficult emotions. Goethe provided the psychological substance for those who felt alienated by the four uh, adaptivism of consumer capitalism. So this slide concludes Goethe's section, noting its role in expressing darkness. The purpose is to highlight Goethe's therapeutic value, positioning it as a counter to societal emphasis on success. So, hip hop from Bronx streets to global stages, birth in the crucible of urban crisis. Hip hop emerged in South Bronx during the mid 1970s amid conditions of extreme urban glut, following the construction of the Crocs or Cross Bronx Expressway, which devastated established communities and the city's financial crisis. The Bronx experienced widespread abandonment, arisen, and poverty. Within this challenging environment, primarily Black and Latino youth created a revolutionary cultural form that would transform global culture. So the slide introduces hip hop's origins in 1970s Bronx crisis. Purpose is to contextualize it as a response to urban decay, emphasizing creativity from marginalized communities. The four elements. Hip hop was initially conceptualized as culture with four interconnected development. DJing, which means, or DJing, pioneered by figures like DJ Cole Herrick, who extended in instrumental breaks using two turntables. MCing evolved from DJ's spoken introductions to a sophisticated form of rhythmic poetry. So the slide lists hip hop's core elements, starting with DJing and MCing. The purpose is to define hip hop as multifaceted culture, crediting pioneers like Cole Herrick. Breakdancing, athletic, competitive dance form performed during instrumental breaks, um, graffiti art, visual expression that transformed urban decay into canvases for elaborate artwork. So, continuing the elements discovers breakdancing and gravity. Purpose is to complete the foundational aspects, showing hip hop as visual, um, physical, and auditory. Um, From local expressions to global phenomenon, hip hop's journey from local phenomenon to global culture force occurred with unprecedented speed. Key milestones include 1979, the Sugar Hall gangs, rappers light brings hip hop to mainstream radio. 1982, Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Fives, the message establishes hip hop as a vehicle for social commentary. So this slide timelines hip hop's spread with the key tracks. The purpose is to show rapid globalization from local innovation to mainstream social critique. Oh, now let's go to part three, digital revolutions, global fusions, 1990s to present. So this slide introduces part three, focusing on digital and global subcultures from 1990s onward. Purpose is to transition to commentary eras, highlighting technology's role in cultural change. So the digital revolution fundamentally transformed how youth cultures form, spread, and evolve, where previous generations were limited by geography and the physical spaces. Digital technology can connections and unprecedented cultural mixing. This era is characterized by accelerated cycles of innovation, um, hybridization of influences across national boundaries, and complex relationships between subcultures, participations, and digital platforms. So this slide explains digital impact on subcultures, enabling global fusions. The purpose is to contrast with past eras, showing acceleration and boundary blurring. What distinguishes contemporary youth cultures from their uh, predecessors is their relationship to media and commerce. Earlier subcultures often defined themselves in opposition to mainstream media and corporate interests, but today's youth navigates a landscape where the boundaries between underground and the mainstream have blurred beyond recognition. Digital platforms simultaneously able um, unprecedented creative autonomy and subjects that creativity to algorithmic governance and commercial surveillance. So this slide discusses media commerce relationships in modern subcultures. The purpose is to critique how technology both empowers and controls cultural expressions. 1988, Second Summer of Love, Acid House explodes in UK. 1994 UK Criminal Justice Act specifically targets rave culture. Um, 2011, this reaches peak influence, spawning numerous aesthetic movements. So this slide starts as part 3 timeline with the 1988 rave explosion, the 1994 law against raves, and 2011 Templar for aesthetics. The purpose is to map key events showing transition from analog to digital. 2013 BTS debuts, um, beginning K-pop's global ascendance. 2018 TikTok launches globally, introducing algorithm-driven subculture formation. 2012 and 20 K-pop fans disrupt temporary registration system. Continuing the timeline, this covers BTS debut, TikTok's launch, and K-pop activism. Purpose is to highlight global digital shifts with examples of culture power. Rave culture, ecstasy, spirit D, curbs, and evading authority, chemical communication, chemical communion. Rave culture emerged in the late 1980s at the intersection of house music, MDMA, ecstasy consumption, and the authoritarian gathering practices. The UK's second summer of love in 1988 marks the explosion of acid house parties that temporarily transformed British youth culture. Unlike previous music centered subcultures, rave was defined less by visible style than by the experience of collective ecstasy, both chemical and emotional, achieved through marathon dance sessions. So the slide introduces rave as 1980s culture, blending music, drugs, and resistance. The second Summer of Love references 1967, but for Acid House, the purpose is to show rave's experiential focus contrasting with style-based subcultures. Sonic Revolution, rave music evolved rapidly through multiple subgenres: acid house, techno, jungle, drum, bass, hardcore, and many others. These electronic styles shared certain characteristics: repetitive beats optimized for dancing, minimal lyrics, and immense transducing quality. Unlike rock music's emphasis on performer charisma, electronic dance music centralized the DJ, positioning them as a facilitator rather than a star, though this would change as rave culture commercialized. So this slide details rave music's evolution and the characteristics. Purpose is to emphasize its hypnotic communal nature with DJs enabling experience rather than performing. Blur philosophy. The ethos of peace, love, unity, respect. Blur um, represented rave culture's spiritual dimension. This philosophy encouraged radical acceptance, emotional openness, and temporary community formation. The rave provided a utopian space where conventional social boundaries and hierarchies could dissolve, creating what scholars have termed temporary autonomous zones, spaces temporarily liberated from normal social constraints. So this slide describes subcultures as digital algorithm-driven communities. The purpose is to contrast with the physical subcultures, highlighting speed and accessibility in identity formation. So pixels, aesthetics, and online identity commercialization, e-girl and e-boys emerging around 2018, primarily on TikTok. E-girl, e-boy aesthetics blend elements of anime, emo, skater culture, and 90s fashion, characterized by exaggerated makeup, including heart stamps on cheeks, hair dyed in unnatural colors, often split dyes, layered clothing, and accessories like chains and chokers. Unlike previous subcultures, participation often involves performing for camera rather than for physical bears. The aesthetic is fundamentally designed to be photographed and shared. So this slide critiques rapid commercialization on online aesthetics. Purpose is to show how digital platforms accelerate observation, questioning authenticity in modern subcultures. Cottagecore, romanticized interpretation of agricultural life that celebrates simplicity, sustainability, and harmony with nature, emerged on Tumblr and Instagram, gaining massive popularity during the COVID-19 as escapist fantasy, aesthetically characterized by floral patterns, natural materials, um, homemade crafts, and the pastel allegory represented a digital age response to climate anxiety and late stage capitalism, offering an imagined retreat from urban complexity and technological situation. So this slide balances criticism by noting positive aspects like community. Purpose is to acknowledge subcultures value despite challenges, emphasizing user agency. Dark academia romanticizes classical education, Gothic and Greek, architecture, literature, poetry, and the pursuit of knowledge, visually defined by tweet, Oxford shows, uh, vintage books, and Gothic culture emerged on Tumblr around the 1950s, 2015, but gained massive popularity on TikTok in 2020, often draws an inspiration from literature like Donna Tartt's The Secret History and films set an elite educational institutions functions as both escapism and the critic of modern educational systems, uh, utilitarian approach. So this slide defines K-pop as multifaceted culture with ongoing content. The purpose is to show its global appeal through immersive ecosystem, differing from Western pop. Digital nature of formation, unlike place-based subcultures of previous generations, these static communities from entirely online through shared visual languages, hashtags, and content creation. Geographical limitations become relevant as participants from around the world can engage equally. This digital nature accelerates both the formation and the solution of these communities. Um, Aesthetic movements that might have taken years to develop in previous eras can now emerge, peak, and decline within months. So this slide details K-pop fandom structure. The purpose is to highlight organized, dedicated nature, enabling global coordination. Commercialization style circle. The rapid commercialization of online aesthetics represents capitalism most efficient corruption of subcultures expression yet. Fast fashion brands can now identify emerging aesthetics through social media analytics and produce corresponding products within weeks. This acceleration challenges the traditional subculture cycle where styles would gradually move from margins to mainstream over years rather than days. So social media continuing fandom roles is emphasize digital activism. The purpose is to show fandomism of fandoms as active networks, not passive consumers. So despite this rapid commercialism, these digital communities still provide the genuine spaces for in identity, expression, and connection. The participatory nature of platforms like TikTok allows young people to contribute to evolving aesthetics rather than merely consuming them, maintaining an element of the DIY ethos that characterized earlier subcultures. So, the slide showcases K-pop's fans, political actions. The purpose is to illustrate fandom's real world power, blending entertainment with activism. Uh, TikTok, macro fandoms, hyper niche, hyper fast, organized power and global reach. Beyond the music's culture ecosystem, K-pop, Korean popular music represents far uh, music genre. It's a comprehensive cultural ecosystem combining music, fashion, dance, visual art, and narrative storytelling, unlike Western pop acts that typically release albums every few years. K-pop groups maintain constant engagement through a steady stream of content, music, videos, variety, show appearances, behind the scene footage, social media posts, and live teams. This continuous content production creates an presented levels of fan engagement and loyalty. So, the slide explains TikTok's role in subcultures formation via algorithm. The purpose is to highlight how tech shapes niche communities faster than ever. Fandom organization, K-pop fandoms are structured with almost military precision, with established leadership hierarchies, specialized roles, and coordinated strategies. These digital communities typically include translators who make content accessible across language barriers, streaming teams who organize 24/7 streaming of music videos to break records. So this slide outlines the trend's life cycle on TikTok. The purpose is to show the platform's dynamic, user-driven evolution of subcultures. Organized power and global reach, social media managers who coordinates hashtags, campaigns, and voting initiatives. Uh, Content creators who produce fan art, dance covers, and reaction videos. Digital activism, K-pop fandoms have transformed entertainment communities into powerful activist networks. Notable examples include in June 2020, K-pop fan claimed to register for tickets to Donald Trump, Tesla rally with no intention of attending, contributing to the unexpectedly low turnout. And finally, hyper niche, hyper fast, algorithm driven subculture formation. TikTok has revolutionized how you subcultures from form through its uniquely powerful recommendation algorithm. Unlike platforms that primarily show content from accounts users already follow, TikTok's for you page serves content based on in engagement patterns, creating highly personalized feeds. This algorithmic curation allows users to rapidly discover content aligned with their emergent interests, accelerating the formation of micro communities around its incredibly specific interests, aesthetics, or behaviors. Thank you so much, and we will continue, inshallah, tomorrow the other slides. So the subject will be over, and then we will be able to submit our test for the subject. Thank you so much, and see you again tomorrow, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.